James Victor Rajkumar. Advocate James Victor Rajkumar is basically from South Tamil Nadu, Tirunelveli district. He did his schooling in Vallanadu, Tirunelveli and college at St. Xavier's College, Palayamkottai, and completed his degree in 1995. During his degree studies itself, he has completed his certificate course in computer programming also. He did his articleship with CA Emmanuel and Co. during 97-2000, and he is the first article student of the firm. On completion of his articleship, he has registered as authorized income tax practitioner, and he is the only person who got this authorization in the year 2000-2001. He has started his own tax consultant, a proprietary firm in the name of JVR Consultant, and started doing consultation on income tax, commercial tax and sales tax, etc. While being an authorized income tax practitioner, he has completed his MBA with Annamalai University during 2009-2011, and as advised by our CA Kanagaraj sir, he has completed his LLP with SK University Anandapur, Andhra during 2012 and 15. Started practicing as an advocate from January 2016 under the name of JVR Associates, and continued as an advocate till date with Madras High Court. In the meantime, he has completed his BG ML degree in Torts and Crimes during 2017-18. He is having the passion of reading and studying more and more, and want more and more degrees behind his name. He got married with Mrs. Jayarani, who was a nursing superintendent with the Prasant Hospital, Chennai, and presently a housemaker taking care of their children. Blessed with their son and daughter. Son is an MCOM graduate and pursuing BL as well as CPA simultaneously, like father, like son. His daughter is doing her +2 in science group. With this small introduction, I welcome Advocate B. James Victor Rajkumar to present his webinar to our August members. Thank you, sir. Over to Mr. James Victor.
Thank you very much. My senior CA, Mr. Sebastian. Good evening to all my respected members of this group. I'm very glad and I'm very happy to present before you to conduct this session, a small portion in the Companies Act. This opportunity is provided by my senior CA Kanagaraj Anthony Sami. While I was doing my CA articleship during the year 97 to 2000, I came to know sir. From the year, I think 2018 onwards, I'm having a good relationship with my CA senior Kanagaraj Anthony Sami, who is a well-wisher in my life and a mentor for my professional career. Thank you so much, sir. I'm thanking all the members in this group also, those who are dedicating their time to watch this webinar. Today, sir actually wanted me to take any particular session with regard to NCLT. I thought it is a proper subject to take because I'm getting more references from CAs, that is chartered accountants, company secretaries from various parts of Tamil Nadu. And I have seen many auditors, they are approaching directly ROC for the remedy for the stuck off companies. What is the remedy? They are inquiring about the remedy to the ROC counter. And many auditors, they are coming towards NCLT with a restoration application, but they are struggling in a few facts. So I thought it is appropriate to take this session for your group of CAs. Let me share my PPT. Sir, is it readable, clear?
It is readable and clear, sir. You can proceed.
So today I'm covering these topics for discussion. First one is a brief about the NCLT. The second topic is strike-off procedure under section 560 of the old Act 1956. And the third one is strike-off procedure under section 248 of Companies Act, the new Act 2013. And the fourth one is the effect of the company notified as dissolved. And the fifth one is appeal before tribunal, that is a National Company Law Tribunal. And the sixth one is grounds and immunity under the law and rules. And the last one is filing procedure. Let me go on to the first one. A brief about the NCLT. It is established under section 408 of Companies Act 2013. It came into functioning from 1st June 2016. Till date, till May 31st May 2016, the company law board was functioning, as you know well. From the date, from 1st June 2016 onwards, NCLT has come to play. It is a quasi-judicial body. They are adjudicating issues relating to Indian companies. It is acting as a tribunal for Companies Act because especially it is established under the Companies Act. So it is acting as a tribunal and acting as an adjudicating authority for IBC Code 2016. Because there is no such tribunal is established under IBC, there is one board was established, that is Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India. It makes rules, but it doesn't handle the adjudication matter. So the adjudicating matter is handed over to NCLT. So it handles. Normally, a tribunal consists of one bench consists of one judicial member and one technical member from ICLS, that is Indian Corporate Law Service. In India, there is one principal bench and 28 division benches are functioning at different states. You can see all these details in the website in the name of www.nclt.gov.in. All the details are available. The principal bench, there is only one principal bench. It is functioning from New Delhi. And there are 6 divisional benches are functioning from New Delhi. 2 benches are Ahmedabad. In Ahmedabad, 1 benches. Bengaluru, 1 bench. Chandigarh, 1 bench. Chennai, there are 2 benches. Guwahati, 1 bench. Hyderabad, 2 benches. Kolkata, 2 benches. Mumbai, there are 5 benches. In Jaipur, 1 bench. Cuttack, 1 bench. Amravati, 1 bench. Kochi, 1 bench. And Indore, 1 bench. So totally 28 division bench and 1 principal bench are functioning as on today. The order from NCLT is appealable before NCLAT. In short, we will call it as NCLAT, you know well. And the second appeal is before Supreme Court. The few powers of NCLT, class action petition or suits can be filed, but it is handled by only a principal bench, which is functioning from New Delhi. This is under section 245 of Companies Act. And then a deregistration of company, oppress and mismanagement, section 241 to 242, refusal to transfer shares, restoration of stuck-off companies under section 252, reopening of accounts and revision of financial statements and investigations, section 213, conversion of public limited into private limited company, issues relating to AGM, compounding of offenses, change in financial years. There are a few examples. And all issues relating to insolvency, bankruptcy code matters are handled by NCLT. Now I'm moving to the second point, strike-off procedure under Companies Act 1956. Section 560 of Companies Act 1956 deals with the power of ROC to strike off a defunct company. Let me share the provision. Section 560 deals with the power of registrar to strike off a defunct company. Subclass 1, where the registrar has reasonable cause to believe that a company is not carrying on business or in operation, he shall send to the company by post a letter inquiring whether the company is carrying on business or in operation. So, under this subclass, the registrar, if he has a reasonable cause to believe that the company is not carrying on business, first step, he shall, it is shall provision, he shall send an inquiry letter to the company by an ordinary post. This is what it states. The second, subclass 2, if the registrar does not, within 1 month of sending the letter, receive any answer thereto, he shall, within 14 days after the expiry of the 1 month, send to the company by post or registered letter referring to the first letter and stating that no answer thereto has been received, and that if an answer is not received to the second letter within 1 month from the date thereof, a notice will be published in the official gazette with a view to striking the name of the company off the register. So what it says, the registrar has to send an ordinary post, as we saw in the first subclass. Yes, he needs to send an ordinary post inquiry letter. Then, if he is not receiving any response from the company after expiry of 1 month and after 14 days, another letter sent to the company by post a registered letter. The first one is an inquiry letter. The second one is a registered letter referring the first letter, stating that I have not received any response from you so far. So I'm going to publish in the official gazette to strike off the name of the company. This is what the second letter he has to send. Subclass 3, if the registrar either receives an answer from the company to the effect that it is not carrying on business or in operation, or does not within 1 month after sending the second letter receive any answer, he may publish in the official gazette and send to the company by a registered post a notice that at the expiration of 3 months from the date of that notice, the name of the company mentioned therein will, unless cause is shown to the contrary, be struck off the register and the company will be dissolved. So, what it says, either receives reply or not within the specified time from the second letter. After 3 months, he will publish the strike off. So altogether, he needs a time 30 days first, and then 14 days, and again a 30 days notice, and again 90 days. So totally 164 days he needs to strike off a company under the old act. Now coming to the fifth one, subclass 5. At the expiry of the time mentioned in the notice referred to in subsection 3 or 4, the registrar may, unless cause to the contrary is previously shown by the company, strike its name of the register and shall publish notice thereof in the official gazette, and on publication in the official gazette of this notice, the company shall stand dissolved. Provided, this is a proviso, subclass 5A, the liability, if any, of every director, the managing agent, secretaries and treasurers, managers or other officer who was exercising any power of management, and of every member of the company shall continue and may be enforced as if the company had not been dissolved. It simply means that the liability is still continuing even after the dissolution of the company. That's all. Then subclass 6 is dealing with the restoration of the old act. It is this is not in force now. So we will move to the Next one. Let us have a summary of 560, section 560. Subclass 1, ROC has reasonable cause to believe that the company is not carrying on business or an operation. Sorry. Shall send an inquiry letter by an ordinary post to the company. As per section 2, within 1 month, if there is no reply from the company, within 14 days after the expiry of 1 month, a registered letter referring the first letter stating that if no reply is received for the second letter within 1 month, a notice will be published in the Gazette to strike the name. Subclass 3 deals with either received or not, he may publish the notice and send a copy by registered post to the company. At the expiration of 3 months to the company will be dissolved. Section 5 deals with after the expiry of 3 months, the company will be dissolved, provided that the liability of director or manager member shall till continue. Subsection 6 deals with a company, an active company, any member or creditors within a period of 20 years can file a restoration petition before NCLT. Subsection 8 clarifies to whom the communication is to be sent. Totally, as per this section 560 of the old Act, if an ROC wants to close a company or dissolve by its own motion, he needs to satisfy 164 days to dissolve the company. This is what we are learning from the 560 of the old Act. Now coming to the third one, the strike of procedure under Companies Act 2013. Section 248 deals with the power of the ROC to remove the name of the company from its register. Let us see the provision. I'll share the document. Section 248, subclass 1. There are 4 subclasses. The first subclass, where the registrar has reasonable cause to believe that. Subclass 1A, a company has failed to commence its business within 1 year of its incorporation. This is the first. Yes.
James, sir. The presentation is on the correct page, sir.
Ama. Apa
Ravindran sir, எனக்கு நம்ம பழையதுல நிக்குது, but any problem in my this one?
இல்ல 240 தெரியலையா?
இல்ல வரல.
248 வரலையா? ஒரு நிமிஷம். புரியுது. இப்போ வருதா சார்?
Now it is.
Okay. I'm sorry. Section 240 of the new Act, subclass 1 deals with where the registrar has reasonable cause to believe that. Subclass 1A, a company has failed to commence its business within 1 year of its incorporation. This is one reason. Then B is omitted. C, subclass C, if a company is not carrying on any business or operation for a period of 2 immediately preceding financial year and has not made any application with such period for obtaining the status of a dormant company under section 455. Or before that, a small proviso is given to the subclass C. He shall send a notice to the company and all the directors of the company of his intention to remove the name of the company from the register of companies and requesting them to send their representation along with copies of the relevant documents, if any, within a period of 30 days from the date of the notice. So here, if you compare the old Act and the new Act, there he needs 164 days to dissolve a company, whereas here he needs only 30 days time. And subclass D, this was inserted by 2018, the year 2018. The subscribers to the memorandum have not paid the subscription which they had undertaken to pay at the time of incorporation of a company, and a declaration to this effect has not been filed within 180 days of its incorporation under subsection 1 of section 10A. And another condition, E, subclass E. The company is not carrying on any business or operation as revealed after the physical verification carried out under subsection 9 of section 12. So let me share this section also. Let us see the section also. Section 10A1. I'll share. Sir, can you, is it visible? Section 10A?
No,
Sir?
sir, no.
No, it
It is
is
not.
not visible. You are selected, but it is not visible. It is not displayed.
Now
Now it is now displaying.
it's coming up.
Yeah.
Section 10A deals with commencement of business. One minute, sir. Section 10A1, subclass 1. A company incorporated after the commencement of the company's amendment ordinance 2019 and having a share capital shall not commence any business or exercise any borrowing powers unless subclass A declaration is filed by a director within a period of 180 days of the date of incorporation of the company in such form and verified in such manner as may be prescribed with the registrar that every subscriber to the memorandum has paid the value of the shares agreed to be taken by him on the date of making of such declaration. And subclass B, the company has filed with the registrar a verification of its registered office as provided in subsection 2 of section 12. So these are the conditions. If not satisfied, he can take action. Sir, section 248 தெரியுதா?
Yes, sir. You can proceed, sir. It is there.
Oh. So as per class C, if there is any defect in to follow as per under section 1 of section 10A, it is a reason for the ROC to go ahead with the section 248(1) to strike off the company. The another one is the company is not, he needs to a physical verification as per the new act 12, section 12(9). It is also can verify. Then section 242 subclass 2, it is deals with a company on its own motion, they can file an application to strike off the company. So now we are not going to consider this. So we want to move on to the fourth subclass 4. If a ROC wants to take steps under section 248(1), he needs to follow this. A notice issued under subsection 1 or subsection 2 shall be published in the prescribed manner and also in the official gazette for the information of general public. So he needs to, as we have seen in subclass 1, he shall send a notice to the company and all directors. This is normally what he will do. He will send a STK1 notice to the company and all the directors also. As per subclass 4, another notice, this is for general public. It is a notice STK5. And subclass 5 deals with, at the expiry of the time mentioned in the notice, the registrar may, unless cause to the contrary is shown by the company, strike off its name from the register of companies and shall publish a notice thereof in the official gazette, and on the publication in the official gazette of this notice, the company shall stand dissolved. As per this subclass section 248 subclass 5, he will cause a publication in STK 7 in the official gazette, as well as he will list in the website of the MCA. So from the date onwards, the company shall stand dissolved. As per subsection 6, the registrar, before passing an order under subsection 5, shall satisfy himself that sufficient provision has been made for the realization of all amount due to the company and for the payment or discharge of its liabilities and obligation by the company within a reasonable time, and if necessary, obtain necessary undertakings from the managing director, or other persons in charge of the management of the company, provided that notwithstanding the undertakings referred to this subsection, the assets of the company shall be made available for the payment or discharge of all its liabilities and obligations, even after the date of the order removing the name of the company from the register of companies. So what he has to do is, as per this subclass, before passing an order under section 5, kindly notice this subclass 5, what he is doing, he is publishing a notification. It doesn't deal with any order at all. Only a notification is to be done in STK 7 in the official gazette as well as in the website of the MCA. So, but here this section, subclass 6, deals with, before passing an order under subsection 5, he shall satisfy these conditions. He has to take some remedies with the assets and liabilities of the company. And also he has to take some undertakings from the directors or any person in charge of the management of the company. This is what he has to do. And subsection 7 deals with the liability. It is equivalent to the old Act 560 section 5, subclass 5. The liability of, if any, of every director, manager or other officer who was exercising any power of management and of every member of the company dissolved under subsection 5 shall continue and may be enforced as if the company had not been dissolved. This simply says that the liability is still continuing even after dissolution. Let us see the summary. I'll share. As we see, section 248 deals with the power of the ROC to remove the company from its register by suo motu basis. Subsection 1A deals with, he has a reasonable cause to believe that the company has failed to commence its business. Normally, the master data of the company will definitely show. So on record, you can see very easily, you can take the record and see whether the company is functioning or not. The second condition is, or subclass 1C is not carrying on any business or operation for a period of 2 immediately preceding financial year. This is another condition. And has not made any application for obtaining the status of a dormant company under section 455. If these conditions are fulfilled, the ROC shall send a so-cast notice requesting the company and directors to send a representation within 30 days. And the subsection 1B, if there was no subscription and no declaration filed within 180 days of its incorporation as per section 10A, this is another cause. And subsection 1E, even after physical verification, if there is no registered office is found as per the data available with the ROC, as per section 12(9), he can take action under section 248(1). Now I will show you the section 455. Later I will share. Sorry. Now we will see on rules. Companies removal of names of companies from register of companies rules 2016. I'll share the rules. Sir, can you able to see the
No, sir.
sir? Now
Yeah, now we can, sir.
see. This is a rule, sir. Companies rules. Removal of names of companies from register of companies rules 2016. Rule number 3. I'm reading it. A removal of name of company from the register on suo motu basis. The register of companies may remove the name of the company from the register of companies in terms of subsection 1 of section 248 of the Act. So if a registrar wants to take action under section 241, he has to follow this rule. It deals with provided that the following categories of companies shall not be removed from the register of companies under this rule and rule 4. So there are certain categories of companies are exempted. These are on the list. One is the listed companies, companies that have been delisted due to non-compliance of listing regulation or listing agreement or any other statutory laws. Third one is vanishing companies. Fourth one is companies where inspection or investigation is ordered and being carried out, or actions on such order are yet to be taken up or were completed, but prosecutions arising out of such inspection or investigation are pending in the court. And fifth one is companies where notices under section 234 of the Companies Act 1956 or section 206 or section 207 of the Act have been issued by the registrar or inspector and reply thereto is pending, or report under section 208 has not yet been submitted, or follow-up of instruction on report under section 208 is pending, or where any prosecution arising out of such inquiry or scrutiny, if any, is pending with the court. And the sixth one is companies against which any prosecution for an offense is pending in any court. And the seventh one is companies whose application for compounding is pending before the competent authority for compounding the offenses committed by the company or any of its officers in default. The eighth one is companies which have accepted public deposits which are either outstanding or the company is in default in repayment of the same. The ninth one is companies having charges which are pending for satisfaction. And the last one, companies registered under section 25 of Companies Act 1956 or section 88 of the new Act 2013. So these are all the companies are exempted from the action under section 241. He cannot take action against these companies. So these are all the exempted categories. Then move to the rule 7 is important one. See here, the manner of publication of notice. See, as we have seen under section 241, he has to send a notice to the company as well as all the directors. So these are the procedure to follow by the ROC is clearly mentioned in this rule. The manner of publication of notice. One, the notice under subsection 1 or subsection 2 of section 248 shall be in STK 5 or STK 6 as the case may be, and B, placed on the official website of the Ministry of Corporate Affairs on a separate link established on such website in this regard, published in the official gazette, published in English language in a leading English newspaper, and at least once in a vernacular language in a leading vernacular language newspaper, both having wide circulation in the state in which the registered office of the company is situated. At the same time, subclass 2 deals with rule 7, subclass 2. See, the registered company shall, so it is a shall provision, simultaneously intimate the concerned regulatory authorities regulating the company, namely the income tax authorities, central excise authorities, and the service tax authorities having jurisdiction over the company about the proposed action of removal or striking of the name of the such companies and seek objections, if any, to be furnished within a period of 30 days from the date of issue of the letter of intimation, and if no objection are received within 30 days from the respective authority, it shall be presumed that they have no objections to the proposed action of striking off or removal of the name. So, as per these rules, he has to send a notice as per in STK 1 and STK 5. When he is circulating in STK 5, simultaneously he has to intimate to all the regulating authorities like income tax, central excise, service tax, even banking authorities about the intention of striking of the name and seeking an objection, if any, from those authorities within a period of 30 days. This is what this rule says. And then what is the rule number 9? Notice of striking off and dissolution of company. The registrar shall cause a notice under subsection 5 of section 248 of striking of name of the company from the registrar of companies and its dissolution to be published in the official gazette in form STK 7, and the same shall also be placed on the official website of the Ministry of the Corporate Affairs. So after due process of law, at the end, he has to cause a notice in the official gazette in STK 7 that the company is dissolved. From the date mentioned in STK 7, the company is dissolved. These are the rules he has to follow. Let us move on to the next one. The effect of the company notified as dissolved. As we saw, as per the Companies Act 560 of the old Act, as well as Companies 240, section 248 of New Act, the ROC has taken an action under those sections to strike off the name of the company, and he caused a notice in STK 7 in the official gazette. From the date onwards, the company is dissolved. Then what is the effect of the company notified as a dissolved? Section 250 clarifies that. So let me share that section 250 for your view. Section 250 of Indian Companies Act 2013, the effect of company notified as dissolved. Where a company stands dissolved under section 248, it shall on and from the date mentioned in the notice under subsection 5 of that section cease to operate as a company, and the certificate of incorporation issued to it shall be deemed to have been cancelled from such date, except for the purpose of realizing the amount due to the company and for the payment or discharge of the liabilities or obligation of the company. So it is very clear from the date of STK 7, the company is ceased to operate as a company and the certificate of incorporation is cancelled, deemed to be cancelled. So he cannot officially, he cannot enter into any business transaction in the name of the company. So just a review, section 250 clarifies that from the date of STK 7, the company ceased to operate as a company and the certificate of incorporation is deemed to have been cancelled. There is only exemption section as per section 248(7) as well as section 560 of 5 of the old act. The liability of directors will still continue even after dissolution. This is a picture showing the status after dissolution. From the date of notice in official gazette under section 248(5), the company ceased to operate as a company. The certificate of incorporation is also cancelled, except there are with the two exemption. It can realize amount due to the company and it can discharge of its liability or it can meet out obligations. Then move on to the fifth one. Now the striking of procedure is over. Now appeal to the tribunal. That is the NCLT. Who can appeal? As per section 252, we can see who can appeal. Let me share once again section 252. As per section 252, subclass 1, any person aggrieved by an order of registrar notifying a company as dissolved under section 248 may file an appeal to the tribunal within a period of 3 years from the date of the order of the registrar, and if the tribunal is of the opinion that the removal of the name of the company from the register of companies is not justified in view of the absence of any of the grounds on which the order was passed by the registrar, it may order a restoration of the name of the company in the register of companies, provided that before passing any order, it is ordered by the tribunal. Order under this section, the tribunal shall give a reasonable opportunity of making representation and of being heard to the registrar, the company, and all persons concerned. Provided the second proviso, further that if the registrar is satisfied that the name of the company has been struck off from the register of companies, either inadvertently or on the basis of incorrect information furnished by the company or its directors, which requests a restoration in the name of the company, he may within a period of 3 years from the date of passing the order dissolving the company under section 248, file an application before the tribunal seeking a restoration of name of such company. So here as per section 252(1), any person means a person having commercial or any legal interest in the company, aggrieved by an order of the registrar, must be passed under section 248. He can file within a period of 3 years before NCLT and seeking for restoration. And as subsection 3, if a company or any member or creditor or workman thereof feels aggrieved by the company having its name struck off from the register of companies, the tribunal on an application made by the company, member, creditor or workman before the expiry of 20 years from the publication in the official gazette of the notice under subsection 5 of section 248 may, if satisfied that the company was at the time of its name being stuck off, carrying on business or in operation or otherwise, it is just that the name of the company be restored to the register of companies, order the name of the company to be restored to the register of companies, and the tribunal may, by the order, give such other directions and make such provisions as deemed just for placing the company and all other persons in the same position as nearly as may be, as if the name of the company had not been struck off from the register of companies. So here it is very clear under section 252(3), if a company means not a struck off company, other active company, any active company can file, or any member and shareholders or creditors or workmen thereof feels agreed by the company having name after struck off, it can make an application before the tribunal for restoration, seeking restoration within a period of 20 years. See the difference? Subsection 1 deals with any person agreed by an order within a period of 3 months can file an application for seeking restoration, whereas section 3 deals with if a company or any member, creditor, or workman agreed by the company stuck off, it is very silent about any order or notice. It just tell us feels agreed by the company having its name struck off from its registrar of companies can file an application within a period of 20 years. So a limitation period is 20 years, whereas in the subsection 1, only 3 years they are giving. So as we have seen, section 252 deals with who can appeal before NCLT. Subsection 1, any person agreed by an order under section 248 by file an appeal within a period 3 years of limitation period. Subsection 3, if a company, any member or creditor, workman feels aggrieved by the company having its name struck off, an application may be filed to NCLT before the expiry of 20 years of limitation. This is what it deals. Now let us move on to the sixth one. Points to be considered as grounds and immunity to restore. Normally, I have observed in the court, NCLT, there are advocates and practicing chartered accountant and company secretaries. They are normally blaming either the petitioners. The petitioners, they do not know about the law and they do not know how to file the ROC filings, and auditors have failed to file it, so on. They are telling these these stories before the tribunal, but the tribunal never accept these reasons. They want cogent reasons. So that is very clear. We have reasonable grounds as well as we have immunity. We understand the law. As per section 252, there are two grounds. See section. I'll once again share. As per section 252(1), any person aggrieved by an order of the registrar. If you have any order which is passed by a registrar, you can appeal. You can appeal before the tribunal within a period of 3 years. And as per section 252(3), see, if satisfied that the company was at the time of its name being struck off. How do we know the name being struck off? As per notice STK 7, we may able to noticed that the company was struck off. So at the time of its name being struck off, carrying on business or in operation. So this is one ground. See, some of the companies, they may have a business action or they may carry on business, but they have failed to file the annual returns as it is necessary to be filed within a time as per law. But they may have filed the income tax returns or commercial tax returns or GST returns, or they may have bank account transactions, something like that they have. So you can prove that the company is in operation or they are doing in business. This is one ground. Another one is, see, otherwise it is only a 4-letter word, but it has a wide meaning. Just class. We will simply call it as just class. That the name of the company to be restored to the registrar. So we have to prove whether it is a just to restore the name of the company, and we have to satisfy the members, or we have to convince the member it is just to restore. Then they will pass an order to restore. So there are two grounds in section 252(3). One is if we are able to prove that the company is carrying on business or in operation at the time of strike-off, one. Otherwise, it is just. So these are all two grounds we have for seeking a remedy. Then the second one is triggering date. Triggering date means the last date to file the statutory annual returns. See, as per section 241(c), it says if the company failed to file annual returns for a 2 immediately preceding financial year. So we have to analyze what is the 2 immediately preceding 2 financial year, how we calculate. So this act is the new act, the Companies Act 2013 came into effect from 1/4/2014. So fortunately, the first financial year starts with 2014-15 and the second financial year is 15-16. So what is the last date for filing annual return and as well as a financial statement for the financial year 2015-16? Fortunately, this is the second year. So for filing financial statement in AOC 4 under section 137(1), it gives a period of 30 days from AGM, annual general meeting. That is for naturally falls October 2016. Naturally, will what is the last date for conducting AGM? AGM is normally they will conduct September, before 30th September. From 30th September, 30 days, it naturally falls on October 30th or 31st. So for filing an annual return in MGT 7 under section 92(4), within 60 days from annual general meeting, that is falls on November 2016. Apart from these two periods, this has to be filed within the due time without any additional fees, a normal fees. With the normal fees, this is the last date, November 2016. There is another provision says about an additional period. What is that? With the additional fee under section 403. Let us see section 403(1). Sorry, dear members, I don't have section 403(1). I don't have the copy of that. So it deals with section 403 as per section 40 subclass 1. It is another 270 days to file with additional fees. So accordingly, if we calculate the last date will fall on 27/8/2017 is the triggering date for starting the default. Before such date, it is only mere delay, not a default. It is only mere delay. So for this, I have a case law. I will share the case law. Yo. Sir, can you able to see, sir?
Yes, sir, we can see there is the Honorable Sri Justice A. Rajshekhar T.
Yes. The
Okay.
same. This case law is this order is passed by Telangana High Court in the case of Sri Vejuraju Srinivasa Raju versus the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, which was passed on 18th July 2019 by Honorable Bench A.S. Rajshekhar Reddy. This is a common order which was passed in the case of DIN disqualification. But for us, we are taking page number 10. Para 19. So I'm reading it. If the said provision is given prospective effect, that is a new after commencement of the new act, the prospective effect is 1/4/2014 as per the circular dated 4/4/2014 and the law laid down by the apex court as stated in the writ affidavits. The first financial year would be from 1/4/2014 to 31/3/2015, and the second and third year's financial years would be for the years ending 31/3/2016 and for 31st March 2017. The annual returns and the financial statements are to be filed with the Register of Companies only after the conclusion of the annual general meeting of the company, and as per the first proviso to section 96(1) of the Act, annual general meeting for the year ending 31st March 2017 can be held within 6 months from the date from the closing of financial year, that is by 30th September 2017. Further, the time limit for filing annual returns under section 92(4) of the Act is 60 days from annual general meeting or the last date on which annual general meeting ought to have been held with normal fee, and within 270 days. Dear members, kindly see within 270 days with additional fee as per proviso to section 403 of the Act. Learned counsel submit that if the said dates are calculated, the last date for filing the annual returns would be 30th November 2017, and the balance sheet was to be filed on 30th October 2017 with the normal fee and with the additional fees. The last date for filing annual return is 27/7/2018. So this is the last date. This is actually this case law relates to calculating 3 years default for disqualification of DIN. So now we will take it as 2 years. So naturally falls as 2017. So 27/7/2017 is the triggering date. So any action taken before this triggering date is considered to be illegal or it is not in accordance with law. So this is one difference we have. So we have two grounds under section 252(3), and a triggering date we have seen, and another one is action taken under wrong provision. See, under section 248(1) subclass C and the B part, if you have noticed that, I am sharing for your reference once again, section 248(1)(C). See, section 248, where the registrar has reasonable cause to believe that subclass C and the B portion, and has not made any application within such period for obtaining the status of a dormant company under section 455. So we need to know what the section 455 deals. So I want to share section 455 also. Section 455 deals with the dormant company. See, as per the subclass 1, where a company is formed and registered under this act for a future project or to hold an asset or intellectual property and has no significant account transaction, such a company or an inactive company may make an application. See here, may make. It is not a must shall provision. It's a may. If we want, we can make. Otherwise, leave it. May make an application to the registrar in such manner as may be prescribed for obtaining the status of a dormant company. Here, in the explanation, here it clearly says an inactive company means a company which has not been carrying on any business or operation or has not made any significant accounting transaction during the last 2 financial year, or has not filed financial statements and annual returns during the last 2 financial year. So it is very clear, if a company is not filed a financial statements for last 2 financial years, it may be an inactive company. Such a company may make an application to the registrar for obtaining the status of a dormant company. It is not a compulsory one. If they want, they can make, otherwise they can leave it. Suppose, in case if they fail to file for obtaining the status of dormant, what the ROC has to do? Section subclass 4 deals with it. In case of a company which has not filed financial statements or annual returns for 2 financial years consecutively, see, when we see under section 248, it says if a company failed to file annual return for preceding 2 years, whereas here says 2 financial years consecutively, the registrar shall issue a notice to the company and enter the name of the such company in register maintained for dormant status. So here, we have failed, naturally we have failed to file a statutory return for 2 years, and we have not made any application for obtaining the status of dormant status. So what the ROC has to do, he shall, see section 455, 4, this very important section, section 4, in case of a company which has not financial statement or annual return for 2 financial years consecutively, the registrar shall, so he has not escaped from this provision. He shall issue a notice to the company and enter into the name of the company in the register maintained for dormant status. So instead of taking action under section 248, he shall take an action under this section only. So if he's straight away jumping into 248, which is a premature action by the on the part of the ROC. So it is a valid immunity for us. Suppose if the company is under dormant status, what is the remedy? Section subclass 5 deals with. A dormant company shall have such a minimum number of directors, file such documents, and pay such annual fees as may be prescribed to the registrar to retain its dormant status in the register and may become an active company on an application made in this behalf, accompanied by such documents and fee as may be prescribed. The dormant company can make an application to restore it back into active. So there is a rule. Let us see the rule also. I will share the rules. This is called maybe called the company's miscellaneous rules 2014. See rule 3, application for obtaining status of dormant company. For the purpose of subsection 1 of section 455, a company may make an application on MSC 1 along with such fee as provided in a company registration offices and fees rules 2014 to the registrar for obtaining the status of dormant company in accordance with the provision of section 455 after passing a special resolution to this effect in the general meeting of the company or after issuing a notice to all the shareholders of the company for this purpose and obtaining consent of at least 3/4 shareholders in value. Here, rule 8, application for seeking status of an active company. An application under subsection 5 of section 455 for obtaining the status of an active company shall be made in form MSC 4 along with fee as provided in the company's rules also shall be accompanied by in form MSC 3 in respect of financial year in which the application for obtaining the status of the company is being filed. Here we have to notice see the provision provided that the registrar shall initiate the process of striking off the name of the company if the company remains as a dormant company for a period of consecutive 5 years. So, as per section 455(4), if the ROC makes the company as a dormant, it will be stay as a dormant company for a period of 5 years. If the company wants to get it back, they have to file an application to restore the same within a period of 5 years. If the company fails to restore the company from dormant status, then only the ROC can stake under the, then only he can take process of striking off. This is one difference for us. It is very clear. So, as per section 455, subsection 1 is very clear. Where a company is formed for a future project or to hold an asset or IP intellectual property and has no significant transaction, an inactive company may make an application for obtaining the dormant status. Otherwise, the ROC will proceed with making the company as a dormant one for a period of 5 years. Within the 5 years period, the company can regain the status of active by filing an application with the applicable fees to the ROC. So the action taken under the wrong provision. So it is very clear. Under section, instead of taking under section 455(4), if the ROC directly taking action under section 248(1) is it is not in accordance with the law, it is a violation or it's a premature action. Now the last one is another ground is without an order, mere publication of SCK 7 is not valid. See section 252(1), you will see the word an order of ROC, and also you may see the second proviso, the order dissolving the company under section 248, and even you can see under section 246 before passing an order. So there are 3 places the word comes an order, an order, an order. So there must be an order under section 248. Without passing an order, mere publication of STK 7 is not valid and it is illegal. So with regard to this, I have 2 case laws. I will share it now.
Sir, James sir, how much time it will take for another? Already it is 8:25.
For 5 minutes, sir.
Okay.
For 5 minutes. So this is passed by Honorable Madras High Court, dated on 1/10/2018, by Honorable Justice Manikumar and Justice Subramanian Prasad in the case of CRP 1476 of 2018. This case was held between AGD Private Limited versus ROC Coimbatore. I am straight away running short of time and straight away going to the last paragraph. For your, if you have time, you can read this. Sir, can you able to see?
Yes, sir, we can see.
Paragraph I'm reading just 5 minutes, sir. Within 5 minutes, I will conclude.
Yeah, please.
Paragraph 29. In the case on hand, on the premise that there is an order striking of the company from register of companies, the petitioner has filed an application under section 252(3) of the Companies Act 2013, and orders have been passed in CP number 178 of 2017, dated so and so, which is imbued in this revision petition. But this court on perusal of files has found that there is no order under section 248. It is a mistake. 248(6) of the Act at all. By inadvertence, the petitioner company was of the view that there was an order under section 248(5) of the Companies Act 2013 and proceeded further whether this court is denuded of the power under Article 227 of the Constitution of India to ignore the fundamental error committed by the register of companies and direct the petitioner to avail the alternative remedy under section 252(3) of the Companies Act 2013, which is admittedly not available by the petitioner on the premise that there was an order under section 248(5) of the Companies Act 2015. Going through the material on record and files, we are of the view that when there is no order under section 248(5) of the Companies Act 2013 passed by the Register of Companies, the consequential publication effected under section 248(5) is not valid. So it is a very conclusive an order by Honorable Madras High Court. It is clearly stated that if there is no order passed by the ROC under section 248, mere consequential publication effected under section 245 is not valid, or simply it is not in accordance with law. So I will share another one. Sir, can you able to see, sir? This is passed by National NCLT Chennai.
Yes, sir. You can proceed, sir.
CA number 56 of 2019. It is held between the same company, AGT Private Limited versus ROC Coimbatore. Just one page. See here, the applicant company has filed a civil division petition at CRP 1476 of 2018 before the Honorable High Court of Madras. While its order dated 1/10/2018 has been observed that the ROC did not comply with the provision of section 246 of the Companies Act 2013. Therefore, there could be not any consequential publication effected under section 245 of the Companies Act 2013. The counsel for the ROC has not placed anything on record contrary to the same. Therefore, it is clear that the ROC concerned has not followed the procedure prescribed under section 246 of the Companies Act 2013. The counsel for the ROC fairly admitted that mistake has been committed. If this is the position being accepted by the counsel for the ROC, then order of striking of dated 28/6/2017 published on 15/7/2017 is not in accordance with law. The same stands set aside. So the tribunal has set aside the STK7 notification dated on 28/6/2017. There are more than 200 companies was listed in the same notification. So it is applicable for all these companies. So it is the action taken by the ROC is invalid. So as we have seen, there are two grounds in section 252(3, and the triggering date must be taken care, and the action taken under wrong provision instead of taking action 455 straight away. If he takes action under section 248 is a wrong one or a premature one, and the last one is without an order, mere publication of STK7 is not valid. So filing procedure, as you know, in NCLT form number 9, you need to file an application through online. There must be an application with a verifying affidavit. 1,000 rupees shall be paid in Bharat. A wakalat or memo of appearance has to be filed. Proof of notice to ROC. Annexes, you must annex all, attach all annexes like financial statements, audit reports, bank statement, income tax or GST returns, etc. You have to annex. And a printed copy to be submitted to the registry. You need to file 2 sets of copy of application along with all annexes in legal green sheet with a covering letter in a binding format has to be submitted with the registry. These are the filing procedure. With this, I am concluding. I am very extremely sorry I am taking so much of time. Thank you so much.
No issues, sir. But it is a vast subject, so we cannot blame you also.
Yes,
this Companies Act, it is a new act. It
Yes.
is dealing with so many ones. So
I took more time. Sorry.
We have not given you the opportunity.
I have one observation to make. So that's
Sir.
I have
Sir.
one observation to make.
Yes, sir.
It is regarding rule number 7,
7, sir.
clause 1, subclause 3.
Which
I
rule,
feel
sir?
we can also take a defense under that. Because
Rule
section
7,
2 pardon? Rule
Which
number
rule, sir?
7.
Ah.
Rule number 7. That is filing of STK 5 or 6. Publication of notice.
Yes, sir.
So now 248.1, 248.2 is striking off on the basis of your application.
No, sir, section 242 deals with the companies on its own motion. They can file a striking of application.
248.1 is by the registrar.
Yes, sir. Yes,
So this rule is applicable for both.
yes, both.
Now, I feel we can take a defense under this particular one because the wordings are not very good. That is my personal opinion.
Okay.
Read class number 3. It says it should be published in a leading newspaper. I'm just talking from my memory only.
Yes, sir.
If
Yes,
you
sir.
are wrong, you correct it. So,
Yes, sir.
or you can put it on the screen.
Ah.
It
Wait,
says,
wait. Can I share? Can I share it?
yeah. Put it on the screen. Because it may be useful for some of you. One particular aspect, I'll just.
Rule 7, sir.
Rule 7. I'll complete my observation. Meanwhile, you can put it on. You can share. If possible, you share it. Or leave it.
7, sir. Can you see on the screen?
So what I'm talking about is this particular one, published in English language in a leading English newspaper.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
This particular word I consider as misleading. What is meant by leading? Whether the Hindu is leading in Chennai, the Indian Express is leading. What is meant by leading? That is issue number 1. Very controversial wording.
Yes,
Number
sir.
1. And number 2, having wide circulation in the state.
Yes, sir.
Is there a definition for these two items? Because as far as newspapers are concerned, there is a separate act and there is a separate register for it.
Yes, sir.
There is a separate register who records all these circulations and all that. But legally, is there a definition for these two words? Leading English newspaper, leading vernacular language newspaper, having wide circulation. So these are all very vague words. What personally I'm thinking is we can challenge any striking off on the basis of this rule also.
Also,
That's
yes.
my personal opinion. You can explain on that.
Yes, sir.
But what is meant by leading English newspaper?
Yes,
One
sir.
fellow can say the Herald is the leading newspaper in Chennai. So what is a leading newspaper?
Yes.
It is a very ambiguous word that has been used in the rule.
Yes.
Having wide circulation. What is meant by wide circulation? So these are because why I am talking about this is in those days when 560 was there, what the wordings will be in a vernacular language, in a vernacular newspaper that is in circulation in the district. Those days it was only district. So what we use today, there was a newspaper called Makkal Kural. And they have one, for this purpose alone, they were running one English newspaper called, if I remember right, it is News Today, something like that. So the entire paper will consist of only these type of advertisements. Because it is compulsory to publish in vernacular and as well as English newspaper that is being circulated in the district. So the circulation will be only 500 to 1,000. Nobody will buy that paper.
Yes, sir.
I don't remember the exact name. But if you go and give, they will charge very minimum amount. They will put in English as well as in Tamil. The matter will be over. But now they are talking about leading. What is meant by
Leading.
leading? What is meant by wide?
Why?
So whatever the registrar has published is not the leading newspaper. That we can find it out and we can take a defense under.
Difference, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mr. Sebastian. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
See, when we are going through these companies, what do you call?
Sir, before that, I'm making one submission, sir.
Yes, sir.
This is the first time I'm appearing before a group of chartered accountants through video
Okay.
conferencing. Through video conferencing. This is my first experience.
Okay. No issues, sir. No issues, sir. See, whether the Companies Act is giving that new act, whether they are following up all the procedures, what they are giving in that, sir, making the company as inactive, the directors inactive like that, whether they are following up the procedures. See, when we are seeing the companies, when we are, what do you call that? Companies history, then only we are coming to know that the company is inactive, the directors DIN is inactive like that. When we are seeing the website only, we are coming to know that.
Yes, sir.
We are not receiving any notices from the register of companies or something.
That we can make a difference, that we have not received any notice from the ROC, either to the company address or to the individual director's address.
Okay.
This is we can make a pray.
Okay.
We can make a pray for striking off.
And
There should be 2 years default. There should be 2 years defaults. For making a DIN disqualification, there must be 3 years of default. It's necessary.
For DIN also, if you are waiting for 5 years, automatically the DIN we can use after 5 years.
We do not know, no, sir. They are making it as a disqualifying for a period of 5 years. For 5 years.
After 5 years, what is the status? After 5 years, the DIN automatically disvalid, or whether we have to represent again?
Whether they may automatically by its own motion, they can make it as an active, or they may take any penal provisions also.
Penal provisions. But penal provisions is hefty provisions, sir.
Yes, sir. They are charging. Yeah, they are charging more money, sir.
Yeah.
Even for reservation, they are costing around. When I started applying during the year 2017, they are passing the order with free of cost. Then slowly they have put a cost of 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, and up to 2 lakhs also they are putting a cost.
Yes. And again, this for the representation 3 years and 20 years limitation. Is it correct? We can make the representation for 20 years means.
Yeah, sir. That is what I differentiated the section 252(1). It clearly deals with if any order passed by the ROC, then within a period of 3 years you can make an application. If there is no order, then section 252(3) is applicable. For a limitation period of 20 years.
Company which is not in function, whether they can run the company for 20 years and within 20 years time they can represent there to restore the company like that name of the company.
No, sir. As per section 250, you cannot run the company after dissolution. You cannot run. Yeah, it is illegal.
But you are saying that after dissolution, we can establish saying that we are filing the GST return, we are filing the income tax return. So the company is running on that basis. We can.
No, sir. As per section 252(3), at the time of striking of the company, if the company is functioning or in operation, you can prove. For that, I told you to take IT returns or GST return, something like that. Bank statement.
For that, we are having 3 years time limitation. Also, for that, we are having 20 years limitations.
Yes.
20 years limitations also.
Yes.
What is the fact up to 20 years? After 20 years, what will happen? We don't know.
Sir, they will take care only they have assets in the company. Otherwise, they are leaving as it is, sir.
As it is. Yes. And again, the liability of the director continues.
It still continues. Yes, it still continues.
Still continues.
Yes. And I am wondering, sir, as per the rule I have mentioned to you, simultaneously the ROC has to intimate to the regulating authorities like income tax officers, commercial tax or central excise, but they never respond, sir. But they never respond.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your elaborate and detailed presentation.
Thank you.
You have taken much more time for preparing this one and updating our knowledge with all your 20 years of experience in this field.
Yes.
Thank you very much, sir. We will use your experience for our clarifications, for our future anything we wanted. We can disturb you also.
Thank you.
So, with pleasure, I can thank you Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Christian, sir, can you end up this